Hello and welcome to another episode of Sparring Sessions. My name's Dax, and here today with me, Chris. How you doing today, Chris?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Awesome. It's you're a new guy on the podcast. You know, we've known each other for about a few
Two
years now,
years?
at least, yeah, something like that. But I always like to have a little introduction when somebody first comes on the podcast. So Chris, you know, not to bury the lead or anything, this is a betting podcast, best bets for UFC Fight Night, Kape versus Almabayev. Chris, two questions for you. How long you been watching the UFC? What got you into it? I guess three questions. And you're a betting man. Is it just UFC? You do other sports? How heavy do you go?
Okay. All right. So first, I'm ashamed of it, but I first got into the UFC because I was a COVID fan. Not much else to watch besides like the NBA and just the UFC. So
Yeah.
I got pretty hooked on it really quickly. Tried watching every card from start to finish. I did not want to put myself in the same crowd as casuals. So I did my best to set myself apart, and I've been watching it since. Um, in terms of betting, I think there was another question, but in terms of betting, I mainly bet UFC. I feel like with team sports, it's so hard to figure out how each person's going to do. But if I were to bet another team sport, I like football every now and then. Sometimes if I really want a team to win, like I'm a Ravens fan, if I really want the Ravens to win and it would hurt my soul if they lost, I'd bet the other team
Yeah.
just to soften the blow. But I'm mainly a UFC better.
Fair enough.
And was there another question?
It's good enough. Yeah, we're at the point, I think, coming up on 5 years since Gaethje versus Ferguson. 249 first UFC card back from COVID. So I think 5 years is enough to say it might be a little embarrassing, but you're not a casual. You're not a McGregor versus Poirier 3 guy. So we'll cut you some slack around here.
Thank you.
But yeah, welcome. So we're here to break down, not from a picks perspective, but from a betting perspective, UFC Fight Night, Kape versus Almabayev. Going down this weekend. We already did a prediction show, Big Will and I, not Tesla Will. I want Tesla Will, but it's Big Will and I. Go watch that. Get about an hour of this fight card. So we had some fun. Yeah, betting. First up, though, we got to break down last week. UFC Fight Night Cejudo versus Yadong went down in Seattle. UFC Seattle. Pretty good card, great prelims. I think 8 finishes in a row. Some great back and forth wars. You enjoy the card overall?
I think the prelims were very fun. The main card, I think it was structured a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like Alonzo Menifield versus Julius Walker was a weird one to have on the main card, but it was a well-structured card overall. Obviously, the main event, no one wants to see a main event end that way.
Yeah.
Very controversial. People talking about they should have taken a point, should have been no contest, but it is what it is. Move on.
Yeah. Do you do well betting wise?
So betting wise, I didn't go heavy on it. I normally don't go heavy. I remember this was a question you asked earlier. I like to put like maybe $50 like for a whole event just to spice things up a little bit. But betting wise, I think if I'm gonna go through a little recap. So I remember the ones that I bet heavy were Nursultan Rizaboyev by finish. I did Ricky Simone point spread, and I also did Javid Basharat by decision. Um, so I only won half of those. I had Abdul Malik in the first round, did not end up winning. I had Costa by sub or decision, which ended up working out. I had Evil Aslan by round 1 KO, did not work out. Then I had John Silva money line, Anthony Hernandez money line, and Nursultan Rizaboyev by finish, all in a parlay, which was my main bet for the night. So I came out pretty even. It was an okay betting night for me. I was going to touch the Cejudo versus Song fight. I thought Cejudo was going to be a good dog to play, and then I saw him eating pizza, smoking hookah. I I was just save that bet for another day.
Yeah, that kind of brings us into my recap for the podcast for last week. First up, Sparring Sessions Parlay cashed. Been a minute. This was a bigger one. I think the second biggest we've had, plus 360. We had Ruzaboyev, Costa, and Allen plus 3.5, which all hit. I told Will, we need to hit one. He wanted to go Allen initially. Wasn't that bad of a bet. Looking back, if Allen had done a few different things, he could have won, but plus 3.5, I got him to I worked his way down that, and we got a parlay that cashed pretty easily. Genie was on. I'll recap for him since he's not going to be here. He had Aslan round 1, plus 200, didn't hit. Julius Walker, plus 185, didn't hit. It was close. It was pretty close. But Font plus 135, he was big on that. That did hit. Cejudo plus 5.5. Now him and I both, spoil one of my. I had Yadong minus 5.5. He had Cejudo plus 5.5. So we were warring. My book voided and refunded my Yadong minus 5.5 bet the way the fight ended. Not all books did that though. Not all books. Some books took the 3-round decision, kind of went with it. I haven't heard from Genie if his book did that yet, but I'm gonna assume it's a void. Costa minus 117, and he went really hard on Ruzaboyev KO plus 145. So
that was plus money.
Oh yeah, plus 145. I think he did pretty well. Myself, I went really hard on Austin Vanderford, and listening back, as I was preparing for the show, I listened back exactly how I thought it was going to go. Take him down, beat him up, make him quit, essentially. Minifield Walker then by KO, minus 150. That one, I felt like that should have happened 10 times, but no. Minifield.
They get tired.
Yadong minus 5.5. Already talked about that. Walker over 17.5 significant strikes. That was a major hit. I think people just thought, he was going to get run over quickly by, or the fight was going to end super early. The actual number was 86. 86.
Oh my God.
I'll take 17.5. And I had a parlay of Ruzaboyev and Basharat, which did not hit because Basharat got KO'd. So that is our recap from last week. I was up a little bit because I went pretty hard on Vanderford. Yeah. We'll get into best bets from this card, UFC Fight Night, Kape versus Almabayev, going down the UFC Apex this Saturday at 4 p.m. Chris, you've watched the show, talked about earlier, but for anybody listening for the first time, what we'll do, Chris and I will go back and forth, 4 or 5 of our favorite bets from this card. I never like to say locks, but our stronger bets. And then towards the end of the show, we'll have a value plays segment where it's either going to be that's where we save bets that the lines haven't come out yet, and we want to mention what they could be. The lines have come out, and we're waiting maybe to see if they move, or lines that we thought about but just weren't too confident in, didn't make the top 4 or 5. So, with that being said. Chris, you're the guest. Guests always go first. I don't like to give you any order. You don't have to go down the card. You don't have to go most confident to least confident.
Yep.
You have to give me a best bet. Well, what's the first one you got for me?
All right. A little bit. Again, it's a safe bet, so the line isn't that respectable. But I like Mario Pinto for decision no bet minus 400. It's the equivalent to his money line, but with Julian Lane, I don't think he's gonna finish. I do not think he's gonna finish Mario Pinto. I'm saying this, or Austin Lane. Why did I say Julian Lane? Yeah, wrong lane. For Austin Lane, I do not think he's gonna finish Mario Pinto. I was very profitable betting on Lane by decision against Rebellis de Spain.
Yeah.
And I will quickly flip the switch on him and say I do not have any faith in him for this fight. I think Mario Pinto gets a KO in the case that Austin Lane does crotch sniff for a little bit, or maybe the whole fight if that ends up working out for him. Hopefully it just goes to a decision and that bet voids. So that is what I think is the safest play. Minus 400, not a lot of movement that will cause, but if you want to throw into a parlay, I think it's a good little boost.
Awesome. For those of you who do not know what that line is or don't have it, essentially that's saying Pinto's going to win inside the distance. If it goes to decision at all, you get your money back. If the only way you lose your money is if Austin Lane finishes Mario Pinto.
Yep.
So I like it. I like minus 400. First one I'm going to go with Charles Johnson, minus 110.
I like it.
Listen to the predictions podcast. This is where Charles Johnson shines against prospects on the come up. Never been knocked out. Temirov isn't a huge takedown guy, so he's not going to get wrestle fucked like Makayev did. And yeah, Temirov's KO over Vergara didn't really impress me. And yeah, seems like a Johnson spot for me.
Yeah, I'm also pretty. I'm not going to say I'm going to be heavy on Johnson, but I do like Johnson as a dog. I do see the money is coming in on Johnson because I think I saw him at plus money, and now they have it at a pick'em.
Yeah.
So I think the general public is also thinking that Tamirov he's just very wild in the first round, and I think Johnson's durable enough to get past that. If you are going to bet on Tamirov, I don't think anything is touchable besides round 1 KO.
Yeah.
Which is surprisingly like plus 675 or plus 600.
Johnson's never been KO'd.
Yeah, I think that's Tamirov's only path to victory. Outside of that, I think if Johnson got to the second round, I think he's having his way. And I don't think Tamirov could keep up that aggression for 3 rounds. I'd be shocked if he gets any finish or decision.
Fair enough. So is Johnson one of your official best bets?
Not my best bets, but it is a bet of mine.
Okay, fair enough. Alrighty.
I think it's value.
Yeah, I'm glad we're in agreement on there. So that's mine. What's your next best bet?
I'm gonna go Esteban Ribovic money line minus 275. I think Nasrat Haqparast is a good fighter. I think he's always going to be in that like just outside of the top 15 range, probably like top 25 roughly. I don't think his ceiling is very high. Esteban Ribovic was a big dog in his last fight against Daniel Zellhuber and overperformed. He keeps looking better and better every fight. He keeps surprising people. He surprised people against Terrence McKinney. He surprised people against Zellhuber. I think Nasrat Haqparast is a step down in competition. I was really surprised they didn't give him a shot at the rankings. I think he wins pretty much anywhere the fight goes with Nasrat.
I like it. You might hear a little more about that later in the show. I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, I'm with you. I think he wins. My next best bet I'm going to go with Douglas Silva de Andrade plus 3.5. I was thinking about him straight. Straight is plus 220, I'm going to say.
Yeah, he was a pretty sizable dog.
Plus 200 or so, yeah. But I like plus 3.5. Essentially what that means is he doesn't get finished and he wins at least 1 round. So if he wins at all, my bet cashes. If he wins, if Castaneda loses 1 round, my bet cashes. The only way I lose is if Castaneda finishes him or Castaneda wins a 30-27 or, at least 1 30-27.
Yeah, 1 30-27.
And it's not a split. So, yeah, I think Andrade, I picked him, and I think he wins, let alone, can take at least 1 round off John Castaneda, and I really doubt Castaneda finishes him.
Yeah.
So,
I also like it. I was looking at Andrade's just money line. I watched a little bit more on Castaneda. I could see why the line's that way. But I think Douglas Silva de Andrade is a very underrated fighter.
Yeah.
He's very old, under the radar, despite how long he's been in the UFC. But he's not an easy fight for anyone. And for him to be at that value. I like it. Castaneda doesn't have that much under his belt in terms of resume. So I do think this is a step up in experience level that he's facing.
In competition, yeah. It's the year of the old guys, well, except for
Yeah.
California. So yeah, that's mine. What do you got next?
So what I have next is I got Danny Silva money line.
Oh, interesting.
I know he missed weight in his last fight. It was a split decision against Culibao. It's just more of I'm not impressed with Almeida.
I'm impressed by your performance.
Yeah, I'm not too impressed with Almeida. Doesn't have like the most impressive victories in the UFC. Isn't super active. Danny Silva showed like glimpses of just not, I wouldn't say greatness, but he showed that he could be well rounded in that Culibao fight. I'm gonna have to go with Danny Silva money line at minus 220.
I like it. I don't love the odds, I'll be honest. If this were closer to minus 150, minus 170, I'd be all in on it. But minus 220, I don't know. Guys who haven't had that much experience in the UFC, younger guys too, decision merchants kind of. It's a little iffy, but I don't hate the pick at all. For my next one, I'm going to go Cody Brundage, plus 120.
Stole it from me.
Hey, we can share. We can share and we can war. That's the thing. Plus 120. I think this line is crazy. Marquez hasn't won a fight in 4 years, and his last win was against Sam Alvey.
Yeah, you're stealing my whole rant about Julian Marquez.
Hey, you and I have talked about this. This line specifically over the past week, and yeah, Marquez. Surprisingly close in age, but Marquez is kind of like he's just not a good fighter.
Yeah,
he's not a good win. Could I see Marquez kind of just coming in here and getting Brundage instantly? Yeah, he's been out for a while. He should have been cut from the UFC by now.
Yeah, I'm really shocked he was still on the roster when I saw that was made.
Yeah, so I'm going pretty hard on this one.
So am I.
You're going pretty hard as well?
Yeah.
I figured this was going to be one. This is official best bet. Yeah, I figured this is going to be one.
Yeah. Marlon Marquez he keeps getting finished in all these fights and pretty quickly too. And the elephant in the room is why are we putting so much money on Cody Brundage? It's Cody Brundage. I think Cody Brundage has something to fight for. After the Malkoun fight, after the Al Hassan fight, I know the Al Hassan fight was after the Bo Nickel fight, but all his victories and fights seem to end by like just dishonorable ways. And I feel like when I saw him come out against Bo Nickel, he fought very differently, and it seemed like he was actually fighting to prove himself, fighting for. It felt like he had purpose in that octagon compared to his other fights where he'll fake. Let me not say fake because he does get fouled.
Sure.
A decent bit, but I feel like he milks it a little bit, and this is coming from an Aljo fan.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm with you. I feel I was there live when Cody Brundage was winning against Cedric Dumas and then pulled guillotine 4 times and lost the fight just by being on bottom. Not the brightest guy, not the most skilled, not the most athletic, but man, this is really just a fade on Marquez more than anything. Yeah,
this is if you put Marquez against anyone in the UFC, I would bet on the other person.
Yeah.
There's been, and it's like I've seen Marquez's lines throughout his career, and they don't make sense to me. He was a pick'em with Marc-Andre Barrio, like almost a pick'em. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all his victories in the UFC have been by submission. I don't think he's going to submit Cody Brundage.
He KO'd. Who did he KO? Maki Pitolo.
What year was that?
Got it, 2019.
Exactly. And he's been in the UFC since 2017.
Yeah. And
again, he's only fighting like once a year. He only had 1 year where he fought twice. And it's not an impressive resume.
Sorry, I'm going to correct myself. He did not. He subbed Maki Pitolo. Only 3 submissions in the UFC. Most recent KO, 2017 head kick on the Contender Series over Phil Haas.
It's my point exactly. Is just I don't think he has a path to victory.
Yeah.
His chin seems to be deteriorating as well. He's not getting any younger.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird to consider him a vet, considering how inactive he is.
Yeah.
It's more fading Marquez than it is betting on Brundage.
Yep.
I just don't see Marquez's path to victory, and I don't see how Vegas decided he was the favorite.
Not at all. As I'm looking at the betting history, I don't want to spend too long on this because it's Julian Marquez, but minus 120. Zachary Reese was a minus 120. Gregory Rodriguez was a minus 110. Sorry, Zachary Reese was a plus 135. All right, that's the last we're going to talk about that fight for a while. But yeah, I think the odds are crazy here for a guy who just does not look good. It hasn't looked good in many years.
Against Sam Alvey, who was on path to beating BJ Penn's longest losing streak record. So,
oh yeah. All right, next up for me, I've got. Where am I at here? Oh yeah, okay. I've got the fight Chepe Mariscal and Ricardo Ramos over 1.5 minus 170.
Oh yeah.
Chepe's kind of a guy. He had that weird one with Jack Jenkins where he arm injury, but that was still over 1.5, and that was like a freak thing. The under is definitely like Ramos. He's been finished or gets finished early, but Chepe's super durable. Chepe's not a huge KO guy.
No.
If this were 2.5, I'd be less confident, but over 1.5 at minus 170, I'll take that.
Yeah, love it. I was actually looking at that as well. Not to spoil later, but I was looking at Chepe's props. When Ramos does get finished, it does seem to be by submission a lot of the times. Chepe doesn't have a lot of finishes in the UFC. He only has one against Jack Jenkins, which you said was a fluke. I think he has had 4 decisions in the UFC. Couldn't finish Damon Jackson. I do love the over at 1.5.
I'm going pretty hard.
Yeah.
All right, what you got next for me?
Are we still doing our best bets?
Yeah, I think so. You have 4 so far. 4 so far. Brundage was 1, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got 4. I only have 1 left. Do you have any more?
That was my last one. This card is a lot of inflated money lines, so I didn't want to touch a lot of them. I
don't dislike it. Well, yeah, I like keeping it short and sweet. I'm gonna go one more. It's kind of a weird one. I'm gonna take. This is a parlay. There's a 3-leg parlay at minus 144, which is going to tell you something. But okay. I was looking at all of these lines individually. We thought they were crazy and kind of threw them in a parlay together. It's going to be over 1.5. All of them are over 1.5s in Johnson Temerov, Montana De La Rosa, Juana Carolina, and Kape Almabayev.
Okay. I think the one that worries me is the Temerov and Johnson. But again, if anyone's going to be on the finishing side, it's Temerov. But I think Johnson's durable enough to get out of the first round and probably go to a decision. Yeah,
over 1.5. And I think, let me double check this, but I think every single fight in the UFC, he KO'd Jimmy Flick in the first round.
Okay.
But
I think we can ignore that one.
That was the first over 1.5 since 4 fights before the UFC. So, that's my last one. So those are our best bets. Just a recap real quick. You have Pinto decision, no bet, minus 400. Ribovic, minus 275. Silva, minus 220. Brundage, plus 120. I have Johnson, minus 110. Douglas Silva de Andrade, plus 3.5, minus 115. Brundage, 120. I'm going pretty hard on that. Chepe and Ricardo Ramos, over 1.5, minus 170. Also going pretty hard on that. And then all over 1.5 parlay, Johnson Temerov, De La Rosa Carolina, and Kape Almabayev. That's minus 144, if I didn't mention that. So before we get into a little more, one of the more fun segments of the value plays, I'll say, we just kind of, talk shit about random lines. We get the Sparring Sessions Parlay of the Week. This one, it's just me today, breaking it down. Will and Jeannie still in. They gave me their odds ahead of time, their legs. So I'm just going to run this one down. Only plus 138. So it's a pretty chalky one. Jeannie is picking Danny Barlow, which we kind of mentioned. I don't love the line, but I'm picking him. Esteban Ribovic is my leg. So sounds like you and I are in agreement with that. And then Will has Brundage Marquez under 2.5.
Oh, yeah.
So the three of those together, plus 138. Will wanted to do to not start the third round, but we're recording this on Tuesday. That prop just isn't out yet. That comes out Thursday or Friday. So yeah. Barlow, Ribovic, and Brundage Marquez under 2.5 plus 138.
I like it.
Don't
I
hate
think
it.
the Barlow one is the one to be on the eye out for. I think he was at minus 300. Patterson isn't necessarily a pushover.
No.
And I think the Veretennikov win is aging badly again for Barlow, especially after UFC Seattle. So that's kind of what's souring that for me.
Yeah,
but it should.
Maybe I would go like hedge with Patterson sub or something like that.
For sure.
But maybe Patterson takedown line. I don't know, but Sparring session of the week. Next up, value plays worth mentioning. Super informal, super casual. Mentioned what this is going to be earlier. These are ones we don't need to spend as much time discussing like we did in the best bets, because these are ones we're probably not throwing as much on, probably not, taken as readily. Maybe, if we want to save our money for 313 next week. But you started with the best bets. I'll start with the value plays, and my first value play, Carter Ramos KO plus 1100.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I think Chepe wins this, but Chepe's it's not his Achilles heel because it doesn't really happen, but he's been KO'd 3 times, decision losses 3 times, but you look at, he got KO'd by Steve Garcia, he got KO'd by Jonas and Brito. He fought Bryce Mitchell. I forgot all about that. KO'd by Gregor Gillespie. This is kind of a crazy pre-UFC resume.
Yeah, I was saying.
Pat Sabatini, Larian Douglas, Sean Sariano. These are all.
Yeah, I was looking at it. It's like you would think he was in the UFC.
Yeah. Oh my God. Anyway, so he gets KO'd. Is kind of also a hedge on my over 1.5. He has, because Ramos isn't really doing a ton of submission. I mean, he has submissions, but he has mostly submissions when you're talking finishes, but none really recently. KO, decision. KO. His last sub was 2019. So, I just think KO line is crazy on that one.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. Ricardo Ramos is a guy that has become overly reliant on spinning elbows as of late.
He has 2 spinning elbow KOs.
Yeah, I think he's becoming. I think he's moving too far away from what got him to the UFC.
Yeah,
and I think right now, I'm looking at it like in my head, like I think that's his path to victory.
Yeah, probably.
Is something just unexpected, hard hitting, at plus 1100. Yeah, if you think Ramos is going to win, that's probably how. And for that to be plus 1100, that's insane.
Yeah. All right, value play. First one, let's hear it.
All right. This one is kind of a hedge on one that we talked about earlier. I have Tamirov round 1 KO. I mentioned it plus 600. He's on a 5-fight round 1 KO streak.
Wow.
It does take just one shot. I don't think he's going to land it, but for that to be how you won your last fights, he doesn't have a good record once it gets to the second round. Or it's still an okay record, but like it's not as impressive.
Sure.
So again, if you're thinking about betting Timarov money line, you gotta just think of what's his path to victory.
Yeah.
And just go with that, because I don't see a lot of paths of victory outside of a first round by knockout. So
Yeah.
plus 100, I love it. I thought that was going to be I thought it was probably going to be like plus 250 or something like that. Plus 600, I love it. May or may not play it, but plus 600.
I'm definitely going to play it. I mean, I take all of the bets, all of the bets I've talked about are bets I place myself. So this is a hedge twice for me. This is a Johnson hedge, and this is an over 1.5 hedge. So, that's the one you said you were most worried about. Plus 600 seems like a good.
Especially for a hedge, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't need to.
I'm gonna go 2 for 1, but I don't really want to talk about them that much because I'll give them a rundown. But like I'm probably not gonna bet these unless the lines get a little higher. And if it comes to that, maybe just as hedges to some other bets I have. These are two that are more just I was shocked by this line. So Almabayev sub. Actually, this is a pretty could be a fun game. If you haven't seen these odds, I want you to guess these two.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Almabayev sub.
I would guess. I mean, his money. He's like close to a plus 200 for his money line. I think people are expecting the decision from Almabayev. If I were to guess his sub line, plus 400.
Plus 700.
Oh wow.
9 of his 17 wins, 9 by sub, 9 by decision. Sorry, 21 wins, 9 by sub, 9 by decision, only 3 by KO. So that one was kind of shocking to me. Marquez KO.
He hasn't gotten one. Brundage isn't the most durable fighter. I would imagine that it's like in that plus 200 to 300 range.
Plus 400.
It's not bad.
Not Julian Marquez. All of Cody
Brundage.
Brundage's. Let me just double check. Sorry, no, that's not true. Yeah, okay. He has 2 losses by submission in the UFC, but those come to world champion jiu-jitsu, like 7 times over world champion jiu-jitsu artist Rodolfo Vieira, and 4-time UFC or NCAA wrestling champion Bo Nickel. And so, I think how he loses is KO. He's lost to worse guys, and that's not true than Marquez. He lost to William Knight and Michael Jake Chug by KO. So that's why I think Marquez wins. So those are 2. Probably not going to play him unless, I don't know, it gets there. Maybe I need. I don't even want to talk about it more. You go. Yeah, I'm disgusted.
All right. So sticking on that fight, I have Brundage round 1 KO. Did you have a look at that line?
I know what his KO line is. I know what like the under, and I know what the KO line is. I'm gonna guess plus. You put them together, plus 300.
It's plus 675.
Jeez.
So Julian Marquez is on a tear of getting finished early. I think I had Cody Brundage isn't a knockout artist, but Julian Marquez is a getting knocked out artist. So I'm just gonna plus 675. I love it. Definitely gonna play that one.
Brundage just KO'd much more durable guys.
Yeah,
he's also. You got to remember, DQ counts as a KO.
Yep, the DQ king. I lost so much money on Malkoon that fight. I was so upset.
He was a
Cody
minus.
Brundage, you gotta turn on your comments. I want to see people hate on you, man.
Hey, maybe if he wins us some money this weekend.
I'll forgive him. I'll forgive him.
All right. I'm going. You kind of mentioned it earlier. Maybe this is a hedge for one of yours. I'm not sure if you looked at this line. You kind of said it's possible. Lane by decision. What do you think?
I didn't look at it. Now that I think about it,
I mean,
I'm going off of what the Robelis line was. I think he was like plus 1,700 for a decision against Robelis Spain. I think that's his exact same method of victory. I think that'll probably be like a plus 1,200.
not quite. It's only plus 900. But he
Still
was
not
also he was less of an underdog to Robelis de Spain than Mario Pinto. Okay, that's gross. Anyway, lane by decision, especially if you're betting Pinto a few times over. Throw him into a few parlays. Lane isn't really a decision or a finish guy. We mentioned it earlier.
I don't think he's knocking out Pinto. I don't think he's subbing Pinto.
No.
That's one of the things if you're gonna play Austin Lane.
Yeah,
that's the line to play.
That's the
not his money line.
What else you got?
So I have one where it's the same fight and two props that I like. It's going back to the one that I alluded to, the Chepe Mariscal fight. So Chepe Mariscal by points, which again his only finish in the UFC, is the fluke injury to Jenkins. Have you looked at that line? Do you have a guess to what that would be? Is it minus 500?
Minus 500. They're probably expecting. I don't know, because that over 1.5 line kind of makes me think otherwise. Him by decision, I'm gonna go minus 110.
Plus 250.
Plus 250. Jeez.
Plus 250. And sticking on this fight, I also like Chepe by submission at plus 400. Okay. Again, Ricardo Ramos has a thing for just getting submitted very quickly, like in scrambles, just leaving his neck out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's been guillotined twice. Again, Chepe is not really a submission artist. He has some on his record, but plus 400, I probably wouldn't touch it. I just want to point it out that Ricardo Ramos is prone to getting submitted. But I really like Chepe by points at plus 250.
Yeah, I might like it if it at sub if it gets higher, plus 600 maybe, but I don't know. Number doesn't entice me,
Yeah.
My last one I'm gonna go here in the Emil versus Gomi fight. What do you think Emil by KO is?
Plus 300?
Plus 450.
I don't hate it.
Emil is plus 170 currently. He has 6 of his 10 wins by KO. Most recent 2. He's not really a wrestler. I mean, he has an RNC, but if I remember correctly, that was more of a why am I blanking on the name? When you knock somebody out and then tap them out.
Club and sub.
Club and sub. Thank you. And Gomi is a guy I think is kind of Emil's best path to victory is going to be because Gomi. Yeah, he's got to put it on him quick and early. Gomi, calm, cool, collected, decision. He wants a decision. That's what he's looking for. And so if you overwhelm him and take out some of that, I think it can happen. So Emil plus 450 and probably his best path to victory.
Yep, I like it.
You got any more?
So I don't have any more actual bets, but one line that I'm interested in, which is actually that fight. I didn't want to touch the money lines because I'm very biased against French and English people because I feel like the UFC is pushing them too much and calling everyone a prospect from that region. And it's hard to figure out who actually is because they're just constantly getting fed people.
Yeah.
But after Gomi beat Brito, it made me put in quotes. He was able to make it competitive with him at least. After that, I decided to set my bias aside, and I'm just gonna avoid the money line. But one thing that I am interested in is what his significant strike line is going to be set at. Um, he's not racking up the most significant strikes in his fight, but I think like the highest I saw was like probably like high 50s. Not super impressive, but um, if they do, what was that?
I have it. I have his significant strike line. Do you want to guess what it is, or maybe do you want to tell me what you would bet it as?
Against Hyder Emil, who's probably going to come out aggressive, I think he's probably going to be open to getting hit a lot. I would play. I'll play anything above 40.
Is that an under or an over?
Over.
So you play over 40.5 is his significant strike line.
Oh wow, I had it. I had the line. Okay.
No, granted, this is not one of the big sports books. This is a sports book that, how do I say this nicely?
Loopholes.
We're not going to say the name, but Sean O'Malley is a influencer for them. So I'll let you extrapolate there. Usually they're pretty close. When you get like over under on a significant strikes, usually they match takedowns too. They match DraftKings pretty much.
Okay. But yeah, I was thinking the line would probably be around 40. I was actually shocked that I got close to it. But I like it, especially if you're also going to play Hyder Emil KO. I think that's the only thing that stops it. Otherwise, I do think Gomi is going to have a lot of strikes just from the counter striking. If it is counter striking, or if he's the one pushing the pace, I think Emil's going to get hit a lot. But I think Emil's path to victory is to be aggressive, and if you're being aggressive, you're going to be getting hit.
So. Yeah. I mean, that's if you think Gomi's going to win, it's probably going to be by decision. And that's, I mean, he's going to hit 40 if that happens. So those are value plays. That's UFC Fight Night, Kape versus Almabayev. Real quick, I do want to. I just made a quick taker for this. I do want to ask you some questions. You won't be on our betting show next week. I'm not spoiling who is, but we have some lines. It's at 9 fights right now, UFC 313, and we have some more fights that are going to be announced. Just this morning or yesterday, depending on who you ask, not Dustin. Why am I saying Dustin? Daniel Hooker and Justin Gaethje, their fights off, which was I was going to feast on that line, but only 9 fights. I'll run through them real quick. I want to just since you're not going to be on, get your thoughts on a few of these lines just ahead of time. Or you know what? I'm curious your favorite bet from next week, because these odds do shift a lot.
Okay.
Right now we got Joshua Van minus 165 over Ray Cejudo plus 132. I know. I got some more. You're gonna like. This is gonna be a tough decision.
Yeah.
Petrosian minus 134 over Bruno Ferreira plus 108. Francis Marshall plus 275 against Myron Santos minus 375. Alex Morono plus 420 against Carlos Leal minus 590. Jordan Santos minus 175 against Ozzy Diaz plus 145. And then, Curtis Blades minus 325 over Kuniev. Lemos minus 122 over Yasmin Lucindo. Baja Mondays and Turner are pick'em. Hufi is minus 600 against King Green, and Ankalaev is minus 105. Or sorry, it's a pick'em with Pereira. I didn't tell you this on purpose. What's your favorite line? Just hearing them off the bat.
Listen, Joshua Van is one of my favorite flyweights. Um, After watching Ray Soraya fight in his debut against Carlos Hernandez, was it?
Yep.
Yep. Um, I think there's going to be a very big problem for Joshua Van. Joshua Van has good takedown defense. Out of every fighter I've done like the most tape watching on, it has been Joshua Van.
Okay.
Um, his issue is that once that takedown is complete, it's easy to hold him there.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if Ray Soraya can get him down once and have his way on the ground. I like him at plus money. That's a very fun fight. I'm glad that they made that fight. I hate that one of them has to lose, but I'm looking forward to that fight. I like Soraya at plus money.
Plus 132.
And then the other one that I like is Amanda Lemos at pretty much a pick'em with an up and comer. Lemos was in that same position not that long ago where she was the up and comer.
Yeah.
I think she's starting to get veteran status now. I think it's a big step up for Lucindo. I think I got Lemos in that one. You said it was about a pick'em?
Lemos is minus, sorry, not a pick, minus 115 to put at minus 105.
Yeah, it's basically, yeah. I like Lemos at that line.
Sweet. I like it. I like to have a little fun at the end of these. Value plays, all this, just kind of riffing sometimes. And one thing I've been noticing for the past really few years, but somebody pointed out to me last week, the lines don't really start moving until week of.
Yeah.
You can kind of get a lot of these early ones that if you're like, oh, I would have taken it at blank money. Well, this is the time. It's not changed much. None of these, maybe Pereira and Clive has, but so yeah. Thanks for coming on. Makizio Costa just got booked. That was my notification again in Mexico City against Christian Rodriguez. So
Christian Rodriguez?
Yeah, that'll be a fun one.
That's a fun one.
We will not have you on for that one. We already have a guest for that one, but one of these other cards we'll have you on for bets again. Thanks so much, Chris.
Yeah, no worries.
It's been great. And yeah, thank you for listening. We hope you made some money on last week's card with our parlay and some of our picks. Hope you make some money this week. Not the greatest card, but betting's a way to spice that up. That's how you make JJ Aldrich versus Andrew fight at least somewhat entertaining. So that'll be us. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next.